In movies and money, Bob Marley, One Love continues to hit a right note at the box office. Film critic Erik Childress, founder of the Movie Madness podcast, is on the scene for us. Erik, it was actually a slow weekend overall for theaters.
Only around $52 million was spent in the top 10 last weekend, putting it in the bottom half of this year. Now, no three-day weekend in 2024 has produced $100 million from top to bottom. Now, that will likely change this weekend, but January and February have been a pretty dire time at the box office. Even Bob Marley, One Love, which grossed over $51 million in its first 6 days, is now not even a lock to reach $100 million. It's on pace right now for around $95 million after a $13 million weekend in the number one spot for a second straight week.
Dune fans are eager for Dune Part 2. Here's a clip.
Do you believe in Paul?
There are signs.
The prophet. Why is that a bad thing? Use it. Because all my visions lead to horror.
What's your review of this Dune?
Well, AJ, I come not to purposely throw cold water on everyone's expectations on Dune Part 2. I think the film will open very well after Part 1 was given the day-and-date HBO Max treatment back in 2021 and still managed to gross $400 million worldwide. But Part 2 should open higher and gross more both domestic and worldwide. I just wish I saw in these films what so many others are experiencing. They can't say I'm just not a Dune guy when I've watched every incarnation of Frank Herbert's book in cinema and television. David Lynch's infamous 1984 adaptation has always been a fascinating failure to me, and I frankly believe it simply has more personality than Denis Villeneuve's films. More grandeur, more of an epic feel, nonsensical in parts, sure, but not boring, which is a basic term I keep coming back to in this needlessly stretched out version. The last hour of Part 1 feels so much like filler. Part 2 gets things moving early on, and there are a few decent set pieces, but the explosions just get repetitive. Oh, look, they blew up another ship. Some of the more fascinating subplots about false prophets and politics get lost, so we can see more sand walking and worm riding. Stellan Skarsgård Baron is a giant bore compared to Kenneth McMillan's version of that character 40 years ago. Hey, Dune fans, enjoy. Call me when they have a complete movie and not just chapters of an incomplete miniseries.
What do you recommend for our audience this weekend?
Why, yes, Angie. Dune. No, not the one in theaters. But if you must go to that, at least be sure to check out the 1984 version that is streaming now on Max. Again, this infamous bomb has enjoyed a reevaluation over the years, so check it out and notice how you can almost clock the big Harkonnen or Harkonnen attack sequence, which occurs at roughly the same time in both the Lynch version and Villeneuve's Part 1. Then notice just how much filler there is to stretch things out into two parts. Yes, the Lynch film is a bit rushed in the second half and could easily have added another 30 to 40 minutes to expand on some ideas, but between the cast, the art direction, weirdness, and the flamboyance of the villainy, far more personality than another walk through the sand into a single location in the new film. Then also on Max is the documentary Jodorowsky's Dune, which is a fascinating story about the version of Dune that was never made by surrealist filmmaker Alejandro Jodorowsky. It's a wild behind-the-scenes documentary of all the ideas that could have made up the ultimate version of Frank Herbert's story, but sadly, never was.
Thank you, Erik.
Thank you, Angie.
Go to businessfirstam.com for where to see our show on TV.